I don't want America or fascism or white supremacy to happen to me. I don't want it to stumble into my life. I don't want it to barrel in, bust down my door. I want to be prepared. I want to live. I want to feel fully human. And I want to explore all of the possibilities of what can happen, what I'm capable of, what I could be capable of, what I believe the others around me are capable of too. That the American project is so sadistic and dark and nonsensical that there's some part of me that burns just to not let it happen to me and to not let it happen to other people.
The whole apparatus of the state was set up against me. They had all of their resources, and the FBI, the police, and they really meant to send me to the death chamber in order to make a point. It really didn't matter who I was, or it was that I was a very
National Guard flooding DC, Trump casually making jokes about the fact that people want a dictator.
They say, we don't need him, freedom, freedom. He's a dictator. He's a dictator. A lot of people are saying maybe we like a dictator. I don't like a dictator. I'm not a dictator.
Intentions to send National Guard into 19 states throughout the US, passing executive orders that are explicitly about targeting homeless folks and folks that are deemed unable to take care of themselves, people that are deemed a public safety issue. I'm investing more money in mental health courts and drug courts, which are other cycles of carcerality and repression and surveillance for people that are going through substance use disorders or are down and out economically for a variety of reasons. And this executive order has explicit language turning away from harm reduction, from mutual aid, from safe injection sites. I find myself constantly oscillating between anger, between fear, between a sense of overwhelm, between a sense of certainty, and whatever we're experiencing in the US is a continued refraction of the violence that we have exported abroad. When is it time to leave? Is now the time to leave? Are we safe in the US? Is it too late already? When we're thinking about what to do, when to leave, what are the considerations that people have had in different parts of the world, I wanted to pull from a few different accounts that talk about this explicitly. And the first article is by Carlos Hernandez, and this is titled Fleeing Venezuela. So I just want to note here that I'm bringing in a case study that is specifically about Venezuela. And I know that there's a lot of debate in leftist spaces about Venezuela and whether or not it's the US's influence and our perspective on Venezuela and whether or not it's authoritarian, whether or not the different rulers of Venezuela, whether it be Chavez or Maduro, have actually fought against imperialism or they've actually repressed leftists and right-wing folks in terms of whatever the political spectrum is in their country. I'm here to say that I am still learning a lot about Venezuela. I understand different aspects of US intervention. Definitely the Bush administration trying to back a failed coup against the leader of Venezuela at the time, Chavez, in 2002. I also have been reading and trying to understand more about the oil industry in Venezuela and how the oil prices at one point were farther up, and the profits from that were able to be used to go towards the Bolivian Revolution and other social programs that were deemed as beneficial for many people in the community. I also understand that leaders that might be fighting against imperialism or fighting under the guise of being against imperialism can pass policies and do things that repress people and or can't satiate an economy that leads to the basics of life. And this is why I'm bringing in this particular piece, Fleeing Venezuela. So I just wanted to give that context before diving into this video more. If there's stuff that you understand and can share resources or facts or media on, let us know in the comments, because this is fascinating to me, and I did spend a good amount of time just digging into this, and it feels good to provide this insight for context because I'm still learning too.
Living in Venezuela, in Puerto Ordaz in particular, you get the feeling that you're on your own, right? It's like you're supposed to get the water service, the electric service, all of those things, and those things really don't depend on you. So you just normally you wouldn't think of trying to secure those things because you can take that as a given. But living in Puerto Ordaz, you cannot take anything as a given. You have to do everything by yourself. I come back to the example of getting the water. I mean, that was a daily trip, actually, every 2 days, because I was alternating with my brother. Every 2 days, I would have to go to a store to buy drinking water. And then so I can, because the regular water is just it's yellow, right? I couldn't possibly drink that. So I guess in general, in Puerto Ordaz, the feeling is that you're on your own. Nothing works. You gotta figure things out by yourself.
His journalist friend wanted to leave as well because her office place was targeted and her work laptop was confiscated. Carlos talks about the decision to leave, what he packs, including identification, various forms of money, his passport, things that he know will be useful on a traveling and trying to get across borders level, and also trying to pay for the different modes of transportation he will have to take. And in it, he talks about leaving on a bus. First, because of the checkpoints. They came every half hour on average. Not that it's predictable. You can be stopped at any time. Some checks are literally 1 minute apart. Each checkpoint is a lottery. Most commonly, the soldiers just check the luggage in the bus storage bins. Sometimes they round up cedulas, national ID cards from everyone, check them for what, how, no one knows, and hand them back. Further down, Carlos is talking about being on this bus and being pulled over at a checkpoint.
I mean, that is very common. It's not like that just happened to me. Yeah, that is super common that they single you out and they try to intimidate you into giving their money. So I was kind of like expecting that, right? So I mean, I'm not naive. That is what they do. That is how they just sustain themselves, I think. Okay, so they take me out of the bus into this kind of like a pickup truck cell detention thing. It's all metal, and it's 1 a.m. That I think that is the worst part because I'm super sleepy. I'm not really thinking about anything. I just let's get over with. Uh, so they start checking my bags, and there's really nothing you can do. I mean, one part of me just wanted to tell them, okay, no, these are my bags. Just don't look. I mean, what are you searching me for? But I mean, you cannot do that. You just have to go with emotions, just let them do their thing. And okay, so they were arguing that my ID was false, that it was falsified, which was a lie, of course. And they kept trying to intimidate me into telling me that I was going to jail because I am falsifying documents and 5 to 10 years of jail. So like they were doing the whole script. Like I mean, they were mostly trying to intimidate me into getting them some money. And since I had money, I knew what I had to do. But they wanted me to say it, and I didn't want to say it. Like they wanted me to say how much. And I guess things could have been way more faster if I just started by saying how much. Uh, but I mean, I guess you just have to go through the emotions, you know. I'm an individual. I'm just a person. I'm no superhero. There's really nothing you can do. It's just to accept, surrender, and do the things they do. So they leave you alone eventually.
Then he's able to get back on the bus. Him and his friends take separate journeys from there on. And eventually he's essentially trying to get to Colombia, and he's riding on the back of different motorcycles. It doesn't take long before we're back riding on an illegal traca. Tito tells me this route is longer, but it bypasses 5 military checkpoints. I don't like taking this one, he says, but for clients without money to pay off the soldiers, it's the only way. And then going on, we have an account from Time magazine by Miguel Chapiro Junger in Spain from 1936. And in this piece, the author writes, "The rise of fascism in Spain followed a classical trajectory that can serve as a blueprint on how to destroy democracy. After the liberal victory in 1936, an army officer named Francisco Franco declared himself to be the only person who could save the country from dishonor and ruin. He announced a national campaign in defense of Western civilization and against communist barbarism, a broad array of enemies that include Jews and Freemasons. In a dizzying inversion, Francoist courts found that it was the liberal government, not the insurrectionists, who had betrayed Spain, and that supporting the government was illegal. The penalty for such treason was, of course, death." And we can see historical echoes from this to the Trump administration. Democratic election, which is following the same systems that have been in place with the representative democracy that the US has, occurred. Trump lost in 2020. And what did he push his followers to do? To lead an insurrection against the Capitol, to accuse the checks and balances as they are right now, to be completely corrupt and to demand an overthrowing of the government as we know it. When you look at history and you can see correlations between Hitler's Germany, the fascism of Spain in the 1930s, of these other nations that we have forced imperialistic violence onto that has led to corruption and the dismantling of their pursuits of democracy. If we can see correlations between those places and us, the writing is on the walls. It's really important to kind of revisit some of the pillars of fascism that we're seeing right now. I've even been refreshing my understanding and readings of it over the last number of days in preparation for this video. And one book that I want to bring in right now is How Fascism Works by Jason Stanley. And if you look up when to leave the US, you're usually going to see a few different videos or different things. But Jason Stanley has been writing about the rising fascism here / in other parts of the world over the last number of years. And I actually was researching this and I was reading articles about him talking about deciding to leave the US for Canada to start working at a university in Toronto. And he talks a lot about how his decision for leaving largely is based on the fact that he has Black Jewish children, and the US state, as we see it, is using Jewish folks and anti-Semitism as a way to further bolster the Zionist cause. And also the targeting of DEI, the erasure of various real histories around chattel slavery, plantation slavery, and white supremacy in the US. When fascism is on the rise, people need safe locations to do work from, and mixed with his care for his children is why he left. But I was reading this book this morning and I was just like, oh my God, like so many things in here are literally what we're experiencing. And I'm going to read a few excerpts from this. And in one part of the book, Jason Stanley writes, the strategic aim of these hierarchical constructions of history is to displace truth. And the invention of a glorious past includes the erasure of inconvenient realities. While fascist politics fetishize the past, it is never the actual past that is fetishized. These inverted histories also diminish or entirely extinguish the nation's past sins. It is typical for fascist politicians to represent a country's actual history in conspiratorial terms as a narrative concocted by liberal elites and cosmopolitans to victimize the people of the true nation in the United States. Confederate monuments arose well after the Civil War had ended as a part of a mythologized history of a heroic Southern past in which the horrors of slavery were de-emphasized. President Trump denounced the task of connecting of this mythologized past to slavery as an attempt to victimize white Americans for celebrating their heritage. And so one key thing that this book speaks about is the need for a mythologized past. And he even goes on in another part of this book to talk about how Richard Nixon utilized this to push for the war on crime in the late 60s. And so even here, we see this even more. Both a demand for a mythologized past, where the nation's sins aren't accounted for. Think about Trump's attack on the Smithsonian, calling it too woke, saying that we need to re-emphasize American exceptionalism, that we need to make America great again. If we look at the foundation of Trump's logic, it's literally about demanding that we only acknowledge America's greatness, America's wins, America's progression, that we drill, that we bring in AI, that we bring in tech, that we bring in eco-fascists, right-wingers that want to protect the environment for the sake of only having it for white people. Think about the fact that there is a white supremacist community that's been covered in the mainstream news, and it's being intellectualized, the fact that these people want a whites-only community. To look at how fascism weaponizes this notion of law and order by mythologizing or creating the environment for further policing and militarization and subjugation to occur. Jason Stanley talks about how fascism weaponizes corruption for its own whims. And in this, he writes, corruption to the fascist politician is really about the corruption of purity rather than law. Officially, the fascist politicians' denouncements of corruption sound like the denouncement of political corruption, but such talk is intended to invoke corruption in the sense of usurpation of traditional order. This part was so fascinating to me because in other parts of this book, Jason Stanley talks about how this return to a mythologized past is also deeply usually tied to patriarchal gender ideals. So if we look at the construction of the internet age today, the manosphere, Jordan Peterson, Milo Yiannopoulos, all of these male figures or women figures in the alt-right and far-right media space really pushing for traditional gender values because they believe that there was a more sacred past that we could revisit. I mean, think about the Jubilee debate where all those people were debating Candace Owens and Black women were literally saying to her, what part of U.S. history would you send Black women to?
You keep bringing up the 1950s, which, because it was right before the fact, I just don't know if that's the period of time that you want to go back to.
This speaks to that so clearly. Trump's kind of push against corruption and then also wanting to be the head of the Federal Elections Commission. He used populism and disinformation to instigate his base, his loyalists, to enact the January 6th rebellion, which is people doing treasonous action to go into the Capitol, to damage federal property, to murder police officers, to threaten politicians. And this is all under Trump's banner of wanting to bring back a fair election, when actually what he's trying to do is to co-opt electoralism and representative democracy as we know it. And so when we it's just like when I read this stuff, it's like, oh, so they don't actually care about corruption. They care about the corruption of the pure nation that they once had. And so it's actually equality. It's actually diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's actually representations of other people and identities and histories that becomes the corruption of what the original project was. When I think about corruption, I also think about liberals and Democrats, the various black sites that operated under Biden and Obama. I think about all of the people that they droned in other parts of the world and the demand for liberalism and neoliberalism to have civil conversations with fascists. I just think that the white supremacists and the imperialistic violence is spreading, it's disseminating. It's not only the politicians or the Republicans of the 2000s, it's the Republican new wave. And so to me, it's just very stirring that we're seeing this happen real time. There are no checks and balances to actually protect you or I or other people from this shit.
How can ordinary people fight back against fascism? I'll tell you. To answer this question, we might begin by seeking to understand what fascists fear most about education. Virtually every advancement that society has made toward greater equality began with educators. This is why fascists attack teachers. There's a direct parallel between what this book is talking about in the 1960s about how educators were being targeted, as well as what is happening right now. Or the Red Scare, which was an attempt by McCarthy and other senators to push leftist educators out of higher education. Democratic education supports human dignity. So if there are instructors out there who are teaching people these are all the injustices, this is what's going on, there are going to be a lot of people out there who do not make as much money as they are currently making. Capitalism thrives off of oppression because it's inherently so exploitative. To fight against fascism as an ordinary person, you have to get an education. Read leftist theory, read political theory. Here are some titles that you can read. Whatever you do, do not let them win. Peace and love.
So in the time that I've been filming this video, honestly, making it has given me a lot of questions and things I wanted to bring to my own family. And yesterday I started some very small conversations with some of my family members about the fact that National Guard is coming to our state in the next number of weeks. And we as a family haven't really talked about how we feel about it, how we're going to react, what are our considerations. And in particular, I talked to a family member and I basically said, everything that's happening is giving me some form of anxiety. I come from a family filled with immigrants. Their immigration journey is so central to how I understand the world, how I understand the strength of people that migrate to other places. And I would be really upset with myself if I didn't set any of the parameters to think about these things ahead, or to prepare, or to talk about how we want to take care of each other. I intend to talk to family members more. I intend to do some research. I intend to think of various simple steps and resources that we can take to protect each other. I think these are three of the main responses that most people have in crisis situations. And I think it's important to understand and body check ourselves and to figure out where we kind of align naturally and which of these three choices might be most helpful for us. Explore a series of clear-cut questions that can help anyone kind of decide when it's time for them to leave. Am I being directly targeted or marginalized? For example, are my race, religion, gender, sexual orientation, or political beliefs making me more visible to authorities or hostile groups? 2. Do I have the resources to leave if I need to? Could I realistically get a passport, money, or safe passage if conditions worsen tomorrow? 3. Am I at risk because of my work or voice? For example, are journalists, lawyers, organizers, or whistleblowers in my community being surveilled, interrogated, or harassed? 4. Is daily life becoming unsafe? Are there more checkpoints, armed patrols, raids, or sudden detentions in my neighborhood? Is it getting harder to access food, water, healthcare, or employment? And 5. Is fear spreading around me? Are friends, colleagues, or family members self-censoring, avoiding conversation, or quietly complying with new restrictions out of fear for their safety? It might be useful for you to write these questions down, to raise them to folks around you, to do risk assessments and understand how your different identities, backgrounds, contexts, legal statuses, citizenship statuses, the recentness of your citizenship status or lack thereof, and really consider those in conversations on how you can protect each other. So for the first kind of option in this scenario of when to leave or how to leave, we have the option of freeze. I'm overwhelmed by everything that's going on. I don't know if I can really think about it. It feels like I don't know the right choice to make. I'm not sure if my life or safety is on the line. I think back to reading Anne Frank's diary in middle school and how her family stayed long enough that they had to go into hiding, and they were in hiding for a number of years. The amount of repression and restriction that Anne Frank experienced, the intensity of her internal world. I hadn't ever read an account of someone my age, let alone an account of anyone doing the emotional and personal work to try to survive a fascist regime. And it seemed so stirring to me that this was someone at such a young age having to deal with so many things. And in the end, she still passed away. Most of her family passed away. Her father was the only surviving member of all of the people that she was in hiding with during the Holocaust. And I think it's a very chilling reminder that some people simply can't leave. Some people don't have the choice to leave for a variety of reasons. And it's important to understand this in different conversations and to really honor it and to do the work of whatever we can to protect people who are unable to leave. What really scares me about freezing, I don't want America or fascism or white supremacy to happen to me. I don't want it to stumble into my life. I don't want it to barrel in. I don't want to be just trying to go about my normal things and it busts down my door. I want to be prepared. I want to live. I want to feel fully human. And I want to explore all of the possibilities of what can happen, what I'm capable of, what I could be capable of, what I believe the others around me are capable of too. And I truly believe that the American project is so sadistic and dark and nonsensical that there's some part of me that burns just to not let it happen to me and to not let it to happen to other people and to try to articulate a worldview where it's like, yes, we're allowed to be afraid. Yes, we're allowed to be shocked into silence or to freeze, but don't fucking freeze for too long because this is happening to people around you. This is happening to people you work with. And this is happening to you on some shape or level. And this is why I think education is important, because we can be beholden to our emotions. We can be beholden to the information given to us. But once we dig and learn more, we're beholden to the responsibility to ourselves to act on the information that we have. And the information that we have is that Trump is joking about a dictatorship, that Texas has been gerrymandered the fuck out of to the point that one white vote matters more than a number of Black or Latinx votes. And we see how they're trying to change education. We see how they're trying to scrub away entire versions of history. And what happens once you try to erase a person's history? You try to erase that group as well. And so freezing, in my mind, won't entirely protect us. It just prolongs what is theoretically inevitable under the systems that we have been forced to live under, and the systems that will only get worse as we stand by and watch them happen. And I don't mean to situate this choice in a cowardly way. I think it's very human and realistic for people to freeze or be overwhelmed. What I think we all need in moments of freezing is to remember our autonomy, to remember how much we love other people, to remember how much we love ourselves, and to remember the justifiable anger that is always within us, that sometimes the terrors of this fucking American nightmare really, really pushes back into us. And I think that's something to really consider and think about. It's leaving other people behind, understanding that I've grown up in this context, that the US has socialized me, that I've unlearned various things that the US or patriotism has tried to socialize into me. When I was traveling around France a lot more a few years ago, when I was considering moving there for grad school, I remember something I would say to my partner at the time is that I would feel guilty leaving my family, friends, and community that are in the US fighting the good fight, organizing, fighting fascism, building networks, building structures of how to resist. The idea of not being there with my people fighting, being with my community, something about that really scares me. And I think it might be some aspect of anticipatory survivor's guilt, or wondering if things could be different if I'd stuck around, if I had stayed in the trenches with people. And I remember when these thoughts were going through my mind a lot more a number of years ago. It was around 2016, 17, 18, and there was a lot of emerging discourses that we see materializing now. And then another option for choosing to leave, which I think Jason Stanley and some of the other great thinkers on fascism have been talking about or discussing, is having a safe location to continue to organize and help folks that are in immediate danger from. If you can flee to another country or location and gain resources and still have secure modes of communication with people that are on Turtle Island or facing the ravages of rising fascism in the US, that is also of great advantage as well. I mean, I think about the fact that there were Weather Underground members that had networks of helping each other go underground, or how the Black Panther Party or Black Liberation Army had similar structures as well. And I do kind of want to do a video on going underground at some point, maybe for my Direct Action 101 series. So let me know in the comments if that's something of interest to you. It does feel really important to see flight as a potential organizing opportunity to help people that are physically in the immediate eyesight of danger. What kind of resources can you get to people? What kind of various safe locations can you establish for other people? What kind of modes of organizing or international solidarity can happen in other places that can help the fight here on Turtle Island and under US rising fascism? And also at the end of the video, I'll include a bunch of TikToks and Reels of folks that have done this and have been talking about extensively online, because I think that's just as helpful. And then lastly, we have the option to stay and fight. When I think about staying and fighting, the things that I'm afraid of is whether or not things will go too far, whether or not I'll actually be able to protect those around me.
Don't fucking push me. You're taking him before I can take a phone number from him?
You need to stop right there.
You need to stop kidnapping people off the fucking street.
100%.
You just dragged him away when I'm trying to call his family for him.
We're making an arrest. You need to stay
Show
back
me
from
your
my
arrest
way.
warrant then. Show me your arrest
I
warrant.
don't need to show you anything.
Yeah, because you're a
not,
liar.
You're not an interested party. You have no right to see that.
Stop!
So,
You guys are kidnapping people off the fucking street.
we good? Yep.
Yeah, because what? Because someone came over to help them, you have to rush and get them in the fucking car?
You're being obnoxious in a lady.
Not being obstructive. You're being obnoxious.
This is 100%. 100%.
You guys have no conscience.
Yep.
If you're doing something right, take your mask off then.
Yeah, you big coward. And unmarked cars.
Look at me!
I was trying to help them and you have to hurry up and get out of here? F you. Watch out.
Are these more people in unmarked cars?
Yeah,
Yep.
one right there.
Yep, just trying to like run us over.
Yeah.
Like it's just all these vehicles, just unmarked cars.
Yeah, show your face if you're not a fucking coward. You're doing something that's lawful. Show your face. Get out of our fucking city.
Get the hell out. Go find a job that you can feel good about. No kidding.
If you're proud of your job, take your fucking mask off.
Seriously.
Disgusting.
whether or not the systems that are against us will just build and build and build, and whatever version of a life that I have now that I love, enjoy, or feel complicated about will not be possible in this more dark and fascistic and authoritarian near future, or a fear of a loss of autonomy in the life that I live as I know it now. But this is also a complicated thing for me to consider and think about as a person born to this nation, as a person born into this American project, which is all of these things that I fear are things and different forms of violence that we've exported to other countries and places in the world. People not being able to go to school, people being indefinitely detained or forced to live through checkpoints, or being targeted or used as human shields, just like Israel uses Palestinians as human shields. If you have been born or raised predominantly in this country, there is a lot of knowledge about the systems and the ways of thinking behind white supremacy and imperialism that I think is really baked into us. What does organizing look like if we stay? I think it can look like a number of different things. And there was this article that I was reading earlier from Organize My Thoughts, and it's an interview. Actually, it's an interview with organizer Shane Burley on the podcast Truth Out. On this podcast, this interviewee talks about how we essentially need to expand our notion of anti-fascism to other areas of life. It's not just fighting in the streets and going toe-to-toe with neo-Nazis in that way. And I've listed a few ways that I think we can stay and fight and expand our notion of anti-fascism. Work stoppages for the military and ICE. During Trump's last administration, when they started doing the deportation flights to different countries all around the world, people went to airports and they tried to block planes. They did highway stoppages. What if we expanded and innovated the ways that we try to stop the mode of operations of the state? If National Guard is coming into different cities that we have around the US, where's the National Guard being housed in your city? What kind of intersections or checkpoints are they setting up? And how can these places and locations of carcerality or surveillance be watched? Look at what DC is doing. There have been countless protests and ICE watches that are examples of how this can happen on a local level wherever you or I are. Power mapping surveillance and weaponry companies. If the apparatus of carcerality and state surveillance is increasing more and more and more, should we not be paying attention to the surveillance companies moving into our cities? The new forms of drone technology or flock cameras or biometric data detection that is being utilized by police and ICE and DHS. In my home state, there is a new facility for Palantir being built, which is the company that has been using AI and its technology to test on Palestinians and those in Gaza. And that same kind of weaponry and surveillance technology is inevitably coming back here to the US. The whole sanctuary city movement, and how now in this new era, we have to think of sanctuary networks, of how we're going to protect those around us who are being targeted, who have had their visas revoked, who, if they are detained, could end up in the limbo of our current ICE detention system for weeks, if not months, and dealing with the psychological and physical mistreatment and torture that we've seen by so many accounts from those that have been released. Is there a way to acquire housing or a secure location for folks to stay at while they're trying to evade state capture? Establishing more liberation schools. Obviously, with the changes to education and the pushback against various forms of history, the erasure of education on LGBTQIA folks, it's going to be really, really important that we don't just rely on public institutions to give us accurate information or to educate the youth. How beautiful would it be if we could organize and establish free zones? Places in our cities or neighborhoods where it's so defended and there is such an ardent protection of the community that ICE or DHS or any of these vitriolic federal agencies aren't able to come in and simply terrorize people. So thank you for watching another video on this channel. So I'm sitting here almost done with this edit, and I'm watching all this news, I'm watching these videos, I'm watching people be targeted by ICE, and I am just so angry. I'm so fucking angry. People don't deserve this. This is scary. Already having a parent deported twice, understanding the trauma of that, even when I was younger, I can't imagine what it would do to me now if something happened to, like, my parent or family members or community members. Like, I just, like, watching this is so It's so clear that this is authoritarianism through and through. And the fact that people are being arrested for recording, tackled for recording, the fact that this is profitable, the fact that the state wants people to live in fear. It wants people to live in fear. There's no other fucking conclusion. You want to set up checkpoints. You want to stop people arbitrarily. You want to make people question every single notion of rule of law. And as I mentioned earlier, like, subvert it. And it's really sickening because I think again and again, where's their karma? Where's the karma for elite people? Where's the karma for Donald Trump? Where's the karma for J.D. Vance? For all these evil fuckers that are white supremacists? Where's their karma? And it disgusts me that I live in a country that has always been capable of this, that has always been doing this, but is now doing this even more shamelessly. And it makes me so fucking angry. And when I get angry, I cry. But people deserve so much better. Like, this country wants to resort to globalization, extract work from all around the world, extract resources, and then to ship people off like they're fucking nothing. It's like, I don't understand how fascism purports itself to be demanding civilization and humanity when it literally shows us the darkest of what humanity is. I'm just... yeah.
I'm going to say some words here, and I need everyone to listen very closely and also to share this video with as many people as possible. If you plan on leaving the United States, or if you have left the United States already, you are not a coward. You are very smart. And if you are not in a position to financially leave the United States, you also still have to listen to this very closely. What is happening right now is that you are living in an authoritarian dictatorship, and things are only going to get worse. Yes, we are seeing the execution of Project 2025 and Project Esther, but things are only going to get worse. For women, things are going to get increasingly worse. For minorities, things are going to get even worse than they already are. For immigrants, the kidnappings will continue. It's going to just get worse. The federal government will continue to be eviscerated. The courts just now are effectively, institutions that deliver verdicts that the administration does not listen to. Because in reading Project 2025 and these plans, this is not something that is just Project 2025. It's also literally the culmination of over 50 years of conservative doctrine, of conservative ideology, that they believe that white Christianity should be in the government. And the reason I say white Christianity there is because it's their own manufactured version of Christianity that is completely antithetical to the teachings of Jesus Christ, but is only beneficial for pro-conservative white straight men. Elections are not going to save us. The resistance is going to take more because, yes, authoritarianism can be defeated. Dictatorships can be defeated because the answer to resistance, the answer to authoritarianism is mass resistance, but that has to be consolidated. That has to be cohesive. That has to be organized. That has to be, truly everyone on the same page here. Things are going to get worse than they already are. This is not a joke. They are building concentration camps. They are kidnapping immigrants. You have white supremacists who feel impunity now to go out and to just shoot black people. We are living in this United States of America. Things are getting worse, and they will continue to get worse. What we are living through right now is something that is bad, but the worst is still on the way. This is what living in a consolidated authoritarian dictatorship looks like. This is what that resembles. And things are only going to get worse. So I say this to say, leave the country while you still can. You know, I pray your passports are not expired. And I pray that you're able to get, you know, new passports, because the State Department under Marco Rubio, what's going to happen? What are you going to do if they don't renew your passport? What are you going to do if they don't let you leave the country? This is where we are as a country. And for people saying that if Trump died, everything would be better or things would, you know, subside, that's not exactly the case. I mean, even for people who think that J.D. Vance would be a terrible president in and of itself, they don't need J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance would become president if something were to happen to Trump. But of course, the people that are backing J.D. Vance are far more dangerous than the people that are also backing Trump. I mean, you have Peter Thiel, you have Curtis Yarvin, you have all these pro-right eccentric billionaires who are hell-bent on destroying democratic freedoms, on destroying women's rights, on destroying the fact that you have a right to vote, on destroying your access to clean water, on destroying your access to clean air, on destroying the freedoms that you have enjoyed for a large part of your life. And I'm not being hyperbolic, I'm being realistic. And it's the fact that we start talking like this, because that's where we are. If you believe that elections are going to save us, you are simply naive. If you believe that we are just going to vote our way out of this, you have to wake up. Do the research. Elections are not going to save us. The Constitution right now is effectively irrelevant to this administration. They do not care. Constitutional rights do not matter. And the courts, they are surviving by a thin, thin thread. This is where we are. And so we have to contend with that reality. And the answer is not to lie down and to just give up. The answer for those of us who are staying here has to look like mass resistance. To resist or to die trying. To tell the truth or to fall into complacency. To tell the truth or to fall and to be compliant. This is what that looks like. This is what living under an authoritarian dictatorship looks like. And if you plan on getting out of the country, get out while you still can. This is where we are. Things are only going to get worse. They eventually are going to shut us in this country completely, and no one will be allowed to leave. I cried tears after the 2024 election results because I knew what it meant for the women in my life. I knew what it meant for the women all across this country. I knew what it meant for minorities all across this country. I knew what it meant for communities who are still right now struggling to breathe in communities where there is no clean air because of oil companies and no clean air because of these industrial plants that are specifically built next to these neighborhoods. The EPA is being gutted. They were tasked with regulating that. With the help of the Supreme Court and with the help of this right-wing conservative administration, that's what's happening right now. Things are going to get worse. They're gutting the FDA people. They're gutting the Health and Human Services Department. They're gutting the CDC. So God forbid we have another pandemic. We are screwed. Everything that has been a part of the administrative state in the United States government is falling apart. It is done intentionally, and that is what is happening right now. So it is not to be hyperbolic that I'm saying all of this. This is not fear-mongering. This is just hardcore truths that we need to understand in terms of what is going on in this country and how things are going to progressively exacerbate from this point forward. And we have to understand that. We have to contend with that reality. Because we may be the laughingstock of the world in some areas, but also, the world is also terrified for what's happening in the United States. This is where we are. Eyes open, heads up, stay focused. Be the resistance.
If you're preparing to leave, you may need more than your passport. Your passport is enough for you to visa out, and it allows you to stay in a country a certain number of days, depending on the country, for now. But if you plan to reside in the country, or if you have children and visa hopping is not advised, then you're going to need some more documents. So if you're preparing, you should get these ready. First, you're going to need an FBI background check. The FBI.gov website has a list of providers where you can get that request processed. With that request, there's a form. You're going to need fingerprints done, and you're also going to need to pay for the process, which is around $18. FBI background checks are required for each adult that is traveling with you. Also, that FBI background check needs to be less than 6 months old, and you cannot leave the country prior to going to your destination country, or else the check becomes void. You will also need recent copies of birth certificates for everyone that's traveling with you. If you're married, you should get a copy of your marriage license. Some countries require that to be recent, like within 6 months. Some do not. Check with your immigration attorney to validate what your requirement is. For LGBTQIA plus persons, you want to verify that that country accepts your marriage license. Also, consult with your attorney to make sure that there's no certificate of impediment required. If you have children, you want to make sure you have copies of all of their transcripts up to the year that you want them credited. So that may influence your timeline. If you want them to complete the current school year, it's going to shorten your window. Like in our case, we wanted them to complete the year. It ended in June. The next year started in August. We had a 2-month window to move. All documents will need an apostille. This is a verification from your home country that the documents are legitimate. Some documents require more than others. Some can be apostille as is. So for instance, our FBI background check just needed the apostille. Some documents require notarization. Our documents, like the transcripts, required notarization, a validation of that notary, then the apostille. So that was 3 trips that we had to make once we actually received the transcripts, which also took a long time. The cost for validating these documents is not high, but it does add up quickly. You also need multiple copies of these documents because in some countries they take your documents and you may not get them back. The highest cost is the cost of time to receive the documents and get them authorized or apostilled. If you don't do it before you leave, and you have to reach back to get them, there are companies that can assist. That is extremely expensive, and it takes a lot of time. And keep in mind that your clock starts ticking once you enter that country and that passport is stamped. So you may not have time to do all of this once that passport is stamped. Most importantly, consult with your immigration attorney for all of your document requirements. They should help you work through the process, tell you what you need, which documents need which verification, and kind of point you in the right direction, because in some cases you also need translation services. In our case, the translation occurred on the other side once we landed. We didn't have to worry about that up front. And the lawyer took care of coordinating that for some of the documents. Some of the documents we had to get translated ourselves. Your passport's is step 1, but if you plan to stay anywhere, you should get started with these other documents.
So, it's official. I have moved out of the United States of America to... that was supposed to be a drum roll, the Netherlands. I don't know what you're probably thinking. Damn, not the OG colonizers. And let me explain. But before I get into the lore of why I picked the Netherlands, I'm going to go over the logistics. A few of you had mentioned in a previous video that you wanted me to talk about my actual move and how it is that I'm able to move to another country. So there's a few ways that Americans can immigrate to the Netherlands, obviously through your job, obviously through school. But the way I'm doing it is a third way called the Dutch-American Friendship Treaty, or DAFT for short. And the way that it works is that you have to be self-employed. So you have to start your own business, and you cannot start the process until you physically enter the country. And as Americans, you get about 90 days in the Schengen area. So you have 90 days to basically register your business. So do a whole business plan, do all the paperwork with the Dutch Department of Commerce, open up a Dutch bank account, and keep 4,500 euros in that bank account for the 2 years that you get with the DAFT. And after 2 years, I believe you are able to renew and you can get a 5-year extension. And if this is something that you'd like for me to talk about more in depth, I'm happy to as I learn the process. I just got here yesterday, so I probably have to start the process tomorrow. But once I learn more about the details of it, I'm happy to talk about it if this is something you'd be interested in doing. The reason I picked the Netherlands is because I've actually been coming back and forth from the US and Netherlands for the past 4 years. My mom actually moved here about almost 6 years ago for grad school. And like 6 months after she moved here, she met her now husband. And about a year after, they gave birth to my baby brother. So I've been coming back and forth from the US and the Netherlands and staying for long periods of time. So I've always thought the Netherlands was a lovely country. I really like the culture here, at least as someone that visited. Maybe it'll be different moving here. But it was never really my plan to move here. But after the series of unfortunate events that this year has been, with losing my job and just everything going on in the US, it just felt like this was the move. All to say, I'm here now. If you'd like me to talk about this more, if you want to learn more about the process, I'm happy to talk about it more. I know some of you had mentioned that you wanted me to talk about the process, so this is it. It feels really surreal. It feels weird, but I've committed myself to diving headfirst into this process and meeting new people. If you're a random Dutch person that follows me or likes my content or feels like we would be friends, I would love to meet you, okay? I am committing myself to going outside and doing things and meeting people. I have reflected a lot of my time in DC, and I really shut down, and I was kind of a recluse, and I know it's because that place traumatized me, but I need to force myself to go outside and practice all of the work that I've done for myself. And so, yeah, I'm here now, I guess.
If you're still living in the US right now and you don't have a second passport or a second legal residency in another country, stop scrolling right now and listen to this video very closely because I'm about to change your life. With everything going on in the US, it's never been more important to start preparing for your plan B. So today I'm going to talk about the top 5 documents you need to have, so if there's ever a time that you need to go, you can go. Number 1, your US passport, and make sure every single page is notarized and that it's valid for at least 6 months. Number 2 is an FBI background check, and get it through an FBI approved channeler like VetConnect or Accurate Biometrics for faster results. Number 3 is vital records like your birth certificate and your marriage certificate. Number 4, all of your educational credentials, diplomas, professional certificate, college degree, and transcripts. And number 5, if you have a business, make sure you have your proof of good standing, letters of reference, or proof of experience. You want to make sure you have an attorney and give them power of attorney from abroad. So at any time, if they need to act on your behalf, they can. All of those documents need to be apostilled. An apostille is an international certification that makes all of those documents legally valid abroad. Then the next thing you want to do is translate every single one of those documents to the language of the country you are going to move to. So if you're moving to Spain, translate all of those documents to Spanish. Keep everything safe in a Google Drive or a secure folder. When you're ready to apply for the visa, you have all the documents ready to go. Here's the biggest pro tip that a lot of people don't know about. Some countries in Europe, like Spain, allow you to apply for these visas in their home country. That means if you ever have to go and you arrive in Spain, you have your documents already in your Google Drive. All you need to do is apply, and you don't have to come back to the States. This is what I did just 2 years ago, and my clients are following the exact same blueprint that I did so they can do it the right way one time. I know this is a lot, and this is why I created my company, Lux Nomad. So if you'd like my company to help you with this entire process, assign you an attorney with all the documents and help you qualify for the right visa for you and your family, while also helping you with every single detail of your relocation journey, all you need to do is come in Lux to book a free consultation with a relocation specialist on my team.